They say the hardest part of getting your bachelor's degree at my university is passing the first year, also known as the assessment year. 8 months ago, it was a regular day of my first year. I sat in my room studying while suddenly I couldn't feel my right arm and my torso anymore. Just seconds later, I was hit by an extreme headache. So I stood up, but couldn't walk straight. I dragged myself to the couch and lay down. I thought I was just having another migraine attack. Wouldn't be the first one. So I didn't tell my roommate to call the ambulance. Not even when I had problems breathing because my facial muscles stopped working. After 5 long hours, when the attack finally stopped, I went to sleep. The next morning, my right arm was paralyzed, and I had immense problems with my balance, leaving me unable to walk properly. So I went to the hospital, and when I did, they couldn't really help me. They ran some regular tests, but sent me home again. And back home, I sat in my room, feeling so helpless, because I still wanted to pass the first year at university, but it felt like something was wrong. As I was determined, I pushed those thoughts away and continued studying with my handicaps. The next 2 weeks felt like hell. My symptoms got worse. Sometimes I would sit in this exact lecture hall you are sitting in right now and feel like my chair was spinning forwards faster and faster, just like a roller coaster. And one night, after 2 weeks, I couldn't bear the symptoms anymore, and I went to another hospital. It was 1 o'clock in the morning, and little did I know, the moment I stepped through the door of the second hospital was the beginning of a journey. A journey that would end with me realizing that medical technology and digitalisation in healthcare was essential for my survival. My name is Max, and if you are a young person my age, or even have children my age, I would like to ask you to listen carefully now, because I'm confident that my story and the information I'm about to share with you could potentially save a life. Let me explain why. That night at 1 o'clock in the morning, my journey started with my first question. What was the reason for my paralysis? After meeting the doctors, they directly subjected me to an examination with MRI, so magnetic resonance imaging, to scan my brain. I don't know if you know, but MRI is this kind of scary round thing that doctors put you in. This thing, they make you lie inside and you have to hold still while coils are spinning around your head, and with it you can virtually look inside a person without cutting them open. And that night, this MRI provided me with a brain scan, which I was shown by my doctor. He sat down next to me, and before he had the chance to point anything out, there I saw it. 2 white spots on this brain scan. I had 2 strokes. So, brain attacks simultaneously. The doctor explained that they were located in the motor area of my brain, an area responsible for feeling and the movement of the body. So only my motor brain was affected, and my cognitive abilities and logical reasoning were not affected at all. And wait a second. Strokes? At such a young age? But that wasn't all. There were more very small white spots on this brain scan. The doctor described them as small brain injuries and asked me if I knew where they came from. And suddenly I remembered. I had been having those migraine attacks on and off for 2 years. Severe headaches and a flicker in my vision making me not see properly. And now, sitting there looking at this MRI scan, I wondered if I didn't have migraine attacks in the past, but small strokes. Things were starting to make sense. That night, I must admit, I felt kind of relieved. I mean, obviously the news I got really sucked, but I had one piece of the puzzle. And today, that makes me wonder. What would I have done without this technology? Without this brain scan? Without MRI? Because in this situation, when you are lying there after 2 weeks of uncertainty, you want to know what is going on here, and you want to know quickly. I'm grateful for this night, because my first question could be answered with the help of technology. Now I could move on and look for answers to the second question I had. Why did I have these strokes? The doctors ran different examinations to find the origin of my stroke, and they did a Transesophageal Echo cardiogram. You really don't want to know how often I had to try saying this. It's really insane. But let's call it by its other name, swallow echo. What happens during this procedure is that a steerable probe is inserted through the esophagus, and with this probe, you can examine the heart and the aorta in more detail, and then get an image of the heart. My image showed one thing that was identified as a potential cause for my stroke, a small heart defect called patent foralem ovale, a heart defect that occurs in 25% of human society. Yeah, you heard right, that is 1 in 4 people having this heart defect. In itself, this condition isn't dangerous, but does increase the risk for some health complications. In my case, what happened was that this allowed a blood clot to get into my head and damage the area of my motor cortex. And as I lay there after my swallow echo procedure, looking at this image, doctors explained that I was very lucky, because the fact that this blood clot only affected my motor brain, it didn't damage my cognition at all, would increase my chances of a full recovery tremendously. As a comparison, I met a woman who had her room on the same hospital floor as me, and she lost her eyesight to a stroke. And we had this habit, sometimes we would meet in the afternoon, drinking coffee and just have a chat. And she told me about one guy who used to be on the same hospital floor and had almost survived. And again, nowadays that makes me wonder, what would I have done without that swallow echo? Because if my heart defect has not been discovered, I might have had a second stroke already. And maybe I wouldn't have been so lucky this time. And interestingly enough, once I was operated on this heart defect, I didn't have migraine attacks anymore. And though I received a lot of scary news that week, today I can't help but feel lucky that digitalisation could answer my second question, why did I have these strokes? So, as far as I was concerned, that was the end of the matter. I was satisfied. I thought, okay, my stroke happened due to this heart defect, which can be operated on, and then everything will be all right. Right? Well, not quite. The doctor said that this heart defect was a potential cause. He had rarely seen such a case at this young age. In fact, he said, it could also be a genetic problem. And when I heard this, I felt this helplessness again, which was a result of not knowing. So, for once and for all, it was time to answer the last question of my journey. What if? What if my heart defect was not the reason for my stroke after all? What if I had a genetic problem? To answer these questions, a procedure called sequencing was applied, aiming at examining my genetic predisposition. To explain sequencing, I would like to paint you a picture. Imagine you walk into a huge library with 7,500 books in it and pick up a random book. You open it up, and all you see is a wild sequence of letters. A series of 4 letters, to be precise, A, T, C, and G. Confused, you close that book and pick up another one. Again, many different sequences of A, T, C, and G. Where are you? In this library, in these books, my construction plan is written. My DNA, my genes are based on these sequences of 4 letters. And in these 7,500 books, 3.2 billion letters are printed. But what if there is a printing error in one of those books? What if there's just one single A instead of a T in an important position? Well, obviously, then you find yourself with a printing error in your construction plan, causing there to be a screw missing from your chair or a window missing from your house. Could this have predisposed me to my stroke? Did I have a printing error on my construction plan? Did I have a genetic problem? To answer this question, parts of my genome have been sequenced. The A's, T's, C's, and G's have been read. And after much suspense, I received the information that all the relevant letters that needed to be error-free regarding my symptoms were indeed error-free. All the relevant letters of my construction plan are in the right place. What do you think that costs? Nowadays, it costs the clinic 1 day of work and $1,000. Now you may think, okay, $1,000 is still a lot of money for just one procedure, but did you know that 20 years ago, the first sequencing of one genome cost $3.2 billion? Yeah, we're talking about $1 per letter. $3.2 billion 20 years ago compared to $1,000 today. And digitalization made its tremendous contribution to this reduction of cost and increase in capability. This was only possible with modern algorithms, data processing, data communication, data retrieval. Everything works at full speed when scanning those letters of my construction plan that needed to be error-free. I'm grateful because digitalization enabled me to answer my last question, what if? But truth be told, that night when my journey started, as I lay partly paralyzed in this hospital with no answers to my questions, the only thing I clung onto was hope. Hope that everything would be okay again. And digitalization not only validated my hope, it gave me confidence. Confidence that I can live well. Confidence that I can still pursue my dream job. Confidence that results in a higher quality of life. And now, I'm here. I'm healthy again. My heart defect was operated on and cured perfectly. I went to physical rehab and would even consider myself more robust than before. And since the blood clot only damaged my motor brain and didn't damage my cognition at all, I'm also able to continue studying without any problems. So, now that you know my story, let me share these 3 main points with you. First, until I was put in a situation that compromised my health, I didn't realize how important it is not to take it for granted, and how lucky I was that digitalization and technology enabled me to get my answers. So please, take great care of your own health and well-being. Second, thank you to the global community of scientists in their tireless efforts of advancing technology, so that anyone who may find themselves in a remotely similar situation can find confidence, just like I did. And third, patent foralem ovale. This heart defect occurs in 25% of human society. So if you, as a young person or your children, are struggling with migraine attacks, So if you, as a young person or your children, are struggling with migraine attacks, keep in mind that digitalisation has already advanced to a point where you can get examined. That digitalisation gives you important answers to your important questions, which may have a significant impact on your lives. Thank you.